This week in our Science Chat, we're focusing on microbes, the good and the bad. Scientists around the world have discovered how they can be used to diagnose cancer, as well as protect us from asthma, but they can also cause disease.
To tell us more, AUT's Head of Science Research, Steve Pointing, joins us live in the studio. Good morning, Steve. Thanks for coming in. Firstly, microbes in your mouth, how can they help diagnose cancer?
Yeah, this is a great story. Just to put it in perspective, this week is the world's largest annual microbiology meeting being held in Boston, so all these stories come out of that. There's a lot of really cool new science coming out. But this study has essentially shown that among patients that are presenting symptoms of cancer, usually you have to complete quite invasive biopsies to determine that. But what this study has shown is that the bacteria in the saliva of patients can reflect that cancer. And in this particular case, for pancreatic cancer, it was associated with increases in a type of bacterium called leptotrichia and decreases in more normal bacteria, such as streptococci. Now, just to put that in perspective, the genetic difference between those two types of bacteria is more than the genetic difference, say, between humans and chimps. So it's quite a huge shift. And moreover, what's very interesting is that patients not showing cancer symptoms or having the cancer don't have this shift in bacteria, and patients with other cancers have a different type of altered profile. So I think what's interesting here is that we've got the potential for a very rapid, inexpensive diagnostic using essentially saliva swabs for cancers.
So how far off do you think that would be when it could be applied in that way?
That's a good question. Well, the technology to actually detect the bacteria is here right now. It's a very sort of commonplace technique. But I think what of course we do have to do is identify that causal link between the cancer and the salivary bacteria. So I think that's probably a way off yet.
Sticking with microbes, they're also protecting us against asthma.
Yes, this is another great story. This is by a Swiss group. And what they did was they used a bunch of mutant mice in this case. As we know, mice are often used as a proxy for human systems. And what they did was they used these mutant mice who had a very heightened allergic response to house dust. And they noticed that among these mice, those that developed a very healthy respiratory airway bacterial community soon after birth actually lost that sensitivity to the allergens, whereas those mice that were not developing a healthy environmentally derived bacterial flora in their airway actually retained that sensitivity into adulthood. So what this suggests is that the exposure to a healthy natural environment as a neonate or a newborn actually has lifelong health implications with regard to allergies.
On to a bad microbe, one that causes Legionnaires' disease. Now, there was some bizarre finding on a bus, was there, to do with windscreen wipers?
It's a great story. Again, reported at the ASM meeting in Boston. So Legionnaires' disease is caused by a bacterium called Legionella, and Legionella is commonly associated with poor hygiene in air conditioning systems, and often people in hospitals are contracting this. But yes, this was a study that showed that in the windscreen washer bottles of school buses in the US, Legionella had multiplied to quite dangerous levels in some cases. And what was more worrying was that a parallel study in the UK showed that if you exclude hospital-acquired cases of Legionella, up to 20% of all those patients who were diagnosed with Legionella probably caught it from exposure to the aerosolized water from windscreen washer bottles.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And how will they use that information? Well,
I mean, what it shows is that unexpected places can be reservoirs for quite dangerous bacteria. So it's really a question of sort of vehicle hygiene in a way. But you know, really, I think that the concern here is that we're exposing young people to this, and of course, young people usually have you know, less immunity to these things than adults.
They'll have to ban school buses.
Exactly. Everyone's got to walk to school.
Sounds not too bad. Thank you, Steve Pointing, for coming in.